You can now, because half of them are gone. Half of the group is gone now, because this is just legislation.
Thursday, October 20th, 2020. at 7 p.m. in the boardholder's chamber located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hear and act on the following item. OR 2022-0023, ordinance amendment to the zoning ordinance of the City of New Haven, approving the amendment to PDD number 65 at 3 Longwood Drive and 175 Halleck Avenue to allow for use as multi-family residential dwelling units. Per order, Honorable Ellen, the Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk for 202 at 200 Orange Street in New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 or 203-946-8582. Public comment and testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenctt.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. And at this time, I will ask my colleagues on the committee to introduce themselves, starting with my colleague to my left from the 22nd Ward.
Alder Jeanette Morrison, Ward 22.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez, Ward 4.
Alder Adam Marchand, Ward 25.
Alder Ellen Kugel, Ward 8.
Richard Furlow, Ward 27. Eli Saban.
And at this time, we will ask the presenters of this item to please come forward. And once you're at the table, please everyone state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members, Chris here. My office address is at 92 Capitol, 11th floor here in New Haven. With me tonight is, to my right is Juan Salas Romer. He's a principal of Village Suites LLC, the petitioner, and Tom Daly of SLR Consulting. He is a project engineer. We're here before you tonight in connection with, similar to the last matter, an amendment, proposed amendment to PDD number 65. Amendment is very simply to add a use that is not currently permitted. Did this happen on the last matter? It must be me. So the simple change we're requesting to the already existing PDD is to allow the facility that is already there and constructed to be utilized for multifamily residential dwelling units. A little bit of history. PDD number 65 was approved by the Board of Alders in 1986. It paved the way for the planning, development, and construction of what was originally the Marriott Residence Inn, specifically designed to be an extended stay hotel. So the hotel rooms that are there, there's 112 of them, are in effect apartments. They have kitchens. They're designed to be lived in for more than just a typical hotel stay. We're making the petition to have the ability to convert the hotel into an apartment complex as opposed to a hotel. And I say the ability, I would also add the flexibility to do that. The hotel, as you know, is operating and operates under Juan's takeover of the hotel. Has operated very well, and he's done some renovations back in September under with the assistance of Alder Carmen Rodriguez. We had a meeting with the neighbors at the hotel. We toured the hotel. We went through some rooms, and interestingly, when I went to look at the original PDD approval, the then board of Alders liked this project because it looked like a residential condominium complex. And if you walk through the site, that really is what it looks like. And I think they like that because it is a transitional area where you have residential neighborhood to the west and the more commercial Longmore to the east. And I say all that in the sense that while we're making a petition to ask for an additional use, I think the practical effect of what will happen in the area is, I don't want to say insignificant, but I don't think to the average person in the area it will be much different. And I also think that what will be different is more positive than negative. I think that people living there, taking pride in where they live, I think it will actually be a benefit to the surrounding community. So to recap what we're looking for, it's a simple amendment to the existing PDD 65 to add the use of multifamily residential. There is no construction or site work or any type of work needing to be done in connection with our petition, save putting in a bicycle rack for the use of the residents. There's no change to the approved general plan from the original PDD. The provisions of the New Haven IZ ordinance will apply. Early on in the planning of this, I had some interaction with City Corporation Council because of the wording of the ordinance that we're all kind of living with and trying to get used to, and probably will be looking at for years to come. Whether it actually applied to this particular situation, we put in our petition that whether or not it does, we're opting in to the IZ ordinance, so that should not be in dispute. As is required, on September 21st, we appeared before the City Plan Commission for two items. There's a section of the zoning regulations that requires an amendment to, when you have an amendment to a zone, you have to do a coastal site plan review. So at that September 21st, 2022 hearing, we appeared before City Plan for both coastal site plan review and seeking a favorable recommendation of our petition. At the City Plan Commission hearing, we presented information to establish the following. The proposed amendment allowing for multifamily residential use complies with Section 65 of the zoning ordinance in every respect, including having 250 feet of open space, as well as the required number of parking spaces. We presented information that our petition is consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of New Haven, including New Haven Vision 2025 and the Longmore Responsible Growth Plan. And we presented information that the proposal was consistent with Connecticut's Coastal Area Management Act, including a letter from DEEP that the proposed use didn't conflict with the policies concerning coastal land and water resources. At that September 21st, 2022 hearing, the City Plan Commission voted unanimously to approve our coastal site plan application, and that is CPC report number 1615-05. And also the City Plan Commission on September 21st, after public hearing, unanimously recommended approval of the proposed amendment to PDD number 65. That is CPC report 1615-07. Tonight, we respectfully request this committee to do the same. The only other item I'm going to address before I turn it over to Mr. Daly to talk briefly about what the overview is. I did notice in the last hearing there was an amended title and order. Early on in the process, I had provided a red line of the original PDD that was granted. And as I indicated to Mr. Lucas, when I sent it to him, it was a challenge because the way they were written in 1986, including referring to the body as Lord Baldwin, there are lots of nuances that are very different than the way we're doing now. In the last several days, I worked with Misty Mazza to revise it more by way of clarification and also to incorporate the procedural path we've been on already, including appearing before a city plan, getting a site plan review, and getting a favorable recommendation, incorporating those reports into the title and order. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Daly, and he can explain the cycle.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. For the record, Tom Daly with the firm of SLR. Our offices are at 195 Church Street here in New Haven. We were contacted by Chris and Juan to do a review of this application. You'll see on the board here is an aerial photograph. We thought that was a great representation. So outlined in yellow are the 112 units that were before you this evening. And then located to, we have Cal Ave located on our left border. And as you can see, it's a lot of single family homes there. And then on the right hand is really somewhat of a sea of parking lot. I think you've seen the back of the Jordan facility here remaining. And I think that really speaks to what Chris spoke about, this being clearly a transitional piece between these two pretty different uses. But when we were tasked with looking at this particular application, we really looked at three things. One, how does it meet the current zoning regulations of today, knowing that this was approved back in the mid-'80s? Two, what did the traffic look like when we transitioned from an extended stay to a apartment? And three, how does this plan or how this amendment falls within the POCD, and then subsequent to that, we looked at it in terms of the long work responsible plan, which recently came out. So let's start with the zoning. So we looked back and we dug through your zoning regulations, and we found that this project meets or exceeds all standards for an apartment development. The only thing that it did not meet the standard was bike racks. So, and that rightfully so, there was probably not a bike rack requirement back in 1986, but we met the parking, and as you know, I think I heard on the earlier application, New Haven has always been conscientious of not over parking projects. So we have enough parking, we had plenty of green space, we met all the standards into that, but we didn't have bike racks. So as part of this application, we will be meeting the new standard for bike racks. We're putting some bike racks in the lower corner, which are the more of the sheltered one, and right by the clubhouse, which seems to be a great location for additional bike racks. So that, and we have a detail on the left. Up at the top is the zoning data table, but that was the only modification, and I think it probably speaks to the fact that it was essentially designed like a residential, so the conversion was not that difficult. Then we took a look at the traffic and parking separately. And what we did was we took a look at what does an existing hotel generate from traffic for 112 units, and what would that look like for multifamily? And what we found was the fact that it was an extended stay, it was almost functioning more like a residential than a traditional in and out hotel. So we provided we went to the Institute of Traffic Engineers and the other documentation, and we looked at an all suites hotel versus a multifamily development. Essentially, we found that in the morning, on a weekday, we're actually gonna have 2 less trips. And in the evening, you're probably gonna have, about 6 more. But in terms of the overall scope of traffic, it's very similar, and that probably speaks to the extended stay, approach. I think if we looked at, once again, hotel, suite hotel, I think probably if we looked at a traditional, which this is not, it would have been a little different. But once again, even this, provides a, small amount of traffic. So, and then in addition to that, we looked at, what's required. You're required 66 parking spaces under your code. We have 88 parking spaces, so we're well there. So our conclusion, Dave Sullivan, our manager of traffic and transportation planning, has concluded that, one, it would not have any negligible, change on the traffic, and then 2, that we have sufficient, parking to accommodate, the new use, or the change in use. And then, we had our AICP, Vince McDermott, to look at, your POCD or your New Haven Vision 2025 plan. That's clearly an element that we need to look at. And what we found under the POCD is this conversion speaks well to the goals and the needs for the POCD. And we found that clearly the POCD back in a long time ago, I think they expected Long Wharf to be more large-scale office buildings. It hasn't really materialized to be that. So they're talking about the Long Wharf more, talking about office space, like industrial and residential. And then so we are clearly a part of that. And it has really become a mixed-use community down in this area. But we do believe that the permanent residence is still consistent with the POCD. I think if you'll find your city plan department came with basically came to the same conclusion independently. Subsequent to that, back in September, we took another deep dive into the city's Long Wharf, the recently published Long Wharf Responsible Plan, because there's a lot of focus on this area. The Village Suites is located in the Greenway Gateway Neighborhood Plan. And the plan on the Gateway Plan shows the Village Suites basically remaining intact with no changes. And under even in the visioning of the Gateway neighborhood, it still illustrates Village Suites in its current configuration. There is a plan to have a greenway that is coming down through here, and they're showing the greenway connection just to the south, kind of that gap between. Actually, they're showing the greenway connection kind of coming down through here. And once again, we're not proposing anything that would be in conflict with that potential future gateway connection if the city was able to acquire rights and work its way through. So subsequent to that, we did find out that PR concluded, or Vince McDermott from our office concluded that also this plan is also consistent with the Long Wharf Responsible Plan. I'd be more happy to see questions with.
At this time, I wanted to recognize Colin Soren that's with us, Alder from your group is from Ward 6, and Alder Canton Singh from Ward 5. Please proceed.
So we don't really have any more on our presentation. We're happy to answer questions from the public or from the committee. I think we kind of summed up. What again I would say is a fairly simple amendment, although the procedure that we have is why we're here.
I recognize Alder Morrison.
Thank you. So, I just have a couple of questions because, Village Suites is really nice and it does look like an apartment. So, my first question is, what would be the like terms for residential lease, the lease agreement? So, if I, they wanted to move out or they moved back in town or something, and they wanted to move into Village Suites, right? What is the lease agreement? Are they able to sign for a year, for 10 years, 5 years? What would that look like? And then the other part of that is, will all the units be considered for residential? So if you have 100, how many did you say? You have 135. Is there a possibility that 112? Is there a possibility that 112 could be quote unquote apartments? So you can answer because I have another question on top of that.
Okay, well, let me just, once on the program, 54 Village Street, address 139 Orange Street. So, to your first question, I guess the first and second question, it's a multifamily, the hotel is multifamily conversion. It's a complete conversion. We're all 112 units. To address your first question about leases, it would be no different than any other apartment. So, 6 months, 1 year, or more. Usually, the 1 year is pretty standard.
All right, so then that, that is this question, cross that out. But I guess as you were here earlier, the IZ piece is really important. And so I see that you have put in your write-up 5%, 6 units for IZ. So as I said to the other group, as far as the 6 units for IZ, are we looking to do better? Because if all of these, you have 112, you have 112 units coming online for residential. And just like with everyone else, we want to make sure that, residents aren't priced out of their communities. Are there plans to do more than the 5%? I know that this standard, where this is coming from, well, this is the standard of 5%. But are you looking to do more? And I didn't see that the AMI, was the AMI 680 or was it 60?
For these 5%?
For the IZ?
Yeah.
I didn't see if it was 80, 60, or 50.
I can answer that. The IZ ordinance in this particular area, I believe it's called the strong section as opposed to downtown. Downtown has a higher requirement, 10%. In this particular area, because it's not downtown, the requirement's a little bit less, it's 5%, but it is 50% AMI.
So, as I asked the last group, even though 50% is good, I appreciate that, but are we looking to do more than this? I know the standard, and we all always, this is new.
Yeah.
And, we know when you work with economic development, they tell you what the standard, but that's bottom line. But we're looking to see how can we be even more neighborly to be able to have more units that people can afford.
Right.
Various people.
So let me answer that question. I'll link it to a few questions that I gathered both in the community meeting and then in the meetings with zoning meeting. At that time, I was asked that question. At that time, I was asked what exactly they meant to be and all that. So, and at that time, I said, well, it's all really, we're exploring and it's all preliminary. This is my third go around. I'm not going to answer the same way. I've been asking questions and I've been doing some preliminary research on the subject. And not like I'm working with Martin Milchak to really analyze what the possibilities are for buildings that were built in 1986, studios and 2 bedrooms, what the market would be for apartments in basement. So far, verbally, what they presented is that we should be looking at a workforce housing situation. They're talking about probably 20% below what the owner was downtown. So whatever the downtown mark is, this should be about 20% less.
Okay. I don't know if you answered my question on, because my bottom line is right now you guys are looking to do 5%. at 50% AMI. That 50% AMI, that's great. But I'm talking about an increased number of units. An increased number of units. So if it's 5%, which is 6 units,
Yeah.
are you looking to do 12, units? Are you looking, how much deeper in your pocket can you go to be able to help the people in the community? So more people have the ability to move into your place if they wanted to or needed to or whatever the situation.
So I'm open to exploring different avenues to make it work. So it's a private project, it's not really affordable housing project, it's an entirety, we're not getting taxpayer dollars to do this project. That being said, I'm open to explore different ways, different metrics of maybe it's a feasible project or for the community as well as the project.
So one of the things I would say, like I said, to the other developers, everyone's like, this is a private project, like, everyone's throwing us a bone. And you're not throwing us a bone because with the IZ, rules and regulations, there are perks too, that, as a developer that you get. So this is not, you guys doing us a favor by giving us a few units for people from the community to live in. You benefit too. Your taxes, are looked at. All these different things are put on the table that support you. You may not make a whole bunch of money, but you'll be spending at, the money. So it's like a wash. And so for me, it's very important that, developers, we're all family here, right? Coming to New Haven, you're part of our family. So as family, we help each other out and helping each other out. And I'm not saying that I'm looking for Section 8 or anything like that, even though that would be good too. But like you said, workforce. We have a lot of new teachers, new police officers, fire people, all these different people who don't make a whole lot of money. And we don't want them to be in a position to have to use what little money they have just for their wants. So that was my main. Okay. That was my main thing as a developer. Can you look at increasing the number of units that become available for affordable?
I can just briefly respond to that, and I've been involved in a lot of multifamily downtown. I'm familiar with the rents and the types of options there are for apartments downtown. This application is proposing to meet the requirements of the IZ ordinance, but maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not sure I've seen a proposal like this that offers units close to downtown that are in this sort of workforce, putting aside the IZ ordinance. These are not new buildings. They're built in 1986. They're dated. I think it is an option for a segment that I haven't seen in a while, and maybe you guys have. But to me, I think it hits a middle ground or a soft area that we don't have much profit in that's comparable. Which is why when some of these questions came up at the community meeting and at city plan, I think it's sort of an uncertainty as to what the tenant base will be here. Even as we walked around the sites with the community, there were several people there who said, wouldn't this be nice for an elderly community? And we all said, gee, I think it would be nice for an elderly community. So I understand the 5%, the 10%, and that there are trade-offs and the tax credits and the ordinance. Some would like more. We'd all like the affordable housing crisis to be addressed somehow, some way. But I do think that this project, it's an area that I haven't seen before. And by making it permanent residential residential apartments as opposed to a hotel, I do think a segment of the community that isn't served will be served a little better.
Well, I would say where I live is 9 minutes from downtown, and we got 33% in a brand new structure. So if those developers figure it out, okay, everybody's gonna hear me say this a thousand times. Because if those developers were able to figure out 33% in the walking distance of downtown, brand new developments, I think we could come up with a little more than 5%. That's just where I sit with it. Like you gave your opinion about the fact that you're doing us a huge favor because we're downtown, from downtown. Where I live is from downtown too. One nice place is near where I live, so.
Yeah.
He knows.
But 33%, is that new construction?
Yeah.
Yeah, so normally when there's a new construction, like.
There's nothing normal about that. There's nothing normal.
No, it's not normal, but that 33% allows for, a big chunk of taxpayers' dollars to build that unit. That was probably like $300,000 a unit, which, or, it would be like a very, very big, amount of money per unit, Like, for instance, Barton Courts was about $500,000 per unit situation, right? So when you have a taxpayer dollars situation, you have an injection of dollars of that cover. When you look at that equation, then it kind of fits the whole financial model. In this case, we're not asking for $500,000 or $300,000 per unit. That's why it's so hard to make it work. And we'll have to go and review, financials and all that. But that's probably the difference between what we're proposing here versus a new construction model.
I was just gonna add that, and one of the incentives in the IZ ordinance is on new construction, you have greater density. You can build more units that on already built an existing project, that benefit not available to this project.
Well, I'm not asking you for 33% today. I'm just asking for a little bit more than 6 units that will allow folks to, maybe the AMI would have to go up, right? Maybe you have some 50%, you have some 60, some 80%. But at least it gives various pool of people the opportunity to live in such a nice establishment as you're living. So I just think that should be taken into consideration. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I need to recognize my co-chair, Alder Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all the work that you're doing to keep the community informed and working along with the Alder. This community appreciates that. Would you remind us, it's not that all the Lord's have got the kids in our house, she wants to do well. She was talking about release options and everything and stuff. But would you remind us, and I stayed there many years ago when it was residence. Many years ago, it's a beautiful facility. Would you remind us of how many, what's the breakdown of bedrooms?
So 74 studios and 28 two bedrooms.
Great, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Alder Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the sake of the record, would you like to please address the issue of the moratorium and how this project relates to the moratorium? Thank you.
I can address that. We did address it at the City Planning Commission meeting, and the City Planning Director Laura Brown at that meeting confirmed for me, and it was my reading as well. But I think on the public record, she confirmed that the implementation of this amended PDD, were to pass through your committee and through the full board, would not be subject to the moratorium. So that you all know that assuming we're successful in getting the PDD amended to permit the residential use, we will have to make a site plan application which will go before a city planning commission. I think it will be a fairly straightforward application, but I knock on wood when I say that because sometimes things come up that nobody thought of. But generally speaking, the site plan is what you see there. And it's obviously a functioning operation right now, which is really the function of the site plan review. You want to make sure the site operates safely and properly. But we will be able to proceed with a site plan application based on my reading of the terms of the moratorium, and Executive Director Brown concurred with that at the City Planning Commission.
Thank you for addressing that. The only other thing I would say at this time, Madam Chair, is I believe we discussed the issue of the fence that is at the western side of the site, and that you confirmed that there was no plan to change or open up or remove portions of that fence.
There are no plans to open up the fence. You're talking about in the middle of the complex?
Yes, but well, on the, I think it's the western edge, right between.
Our street, yes, yeah. There are no plans. I can't remember whether it's the Long Wharf Responsible Growth Plan, or I think it's the Long Wharf Responsible Growth Plan that talks about the connectivity arc, and it shows it on the southern end of that. And we hopefully indicated then, but if not, we're indicating now that there's nothing we're doing here that would conflict with that, and we'd be certainly cooperative with the city and other agencies that would try to make that happen. But no, the facility itself, there's no plan to connect the Howard Street within the development itself.
Thank you. So in other words, there's no plan to do that, but if the community in the city wanted to change that plan, you'd be willing to work with the
We'd
city.
be willing to work with the city.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions from colleagues? Oh, Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you. Good evening. The 84 studios, who are you targeting to live here?
So like I said, it should be a workforce housing, should be first people who are closer to the or the neighborhood that work in professional, so nurses, people are entering that bracket. That's basically the target market. I think older adults, like it's in the community, I've said, I think that would be an important target, so people could stay there and the generational, situation around the area.
Okay, so you're looking more at stability, families that are going to be stable, not transitional.
No, transitional, I think it's going to be more, I think it will complement the neighborhood. I mean, it's interesting because when I've been in development for 15 years in the East, I don't know what good government is, and behavior is, if you divide it in income brackets, 25% of Haven earns more than $80,000. Then 23% earns between 40 and 80. And then you got more than 50 or 60, almost like 60% is less than 40,000. When you look at housing, all kinds of structure and what you have available, the sector in the middle is being pushed up. So what this development could do in favor of that is that the upper portion of that bracket, just between 60 and 80,000, would be like a really good target, for this project. Based on the preliminary information that I've been getting.
Because if you're not thinking more so of like transition, and you're looking more stability, it might be great if you to increase the number of affordables, because you will then have a nice stable base that will hopefully guarantee you a faithful rent
Right, moreover.
coming in, where that if you do some transition, those people leave, you don't know when those apartments might be rented.
That's correct. That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. And that's if there are any other questions from colleagues, and if not, thank you for your presentation, and we'll open up for public comment. Thank you so much. So I will ask if there are any members of the public who are here wishing to testify for a second time. If there are any members of the public who are wishing to testify on this item. And last time, if there are any members of the public wishing to testify, Alderman Rashad.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public portion of this meeting.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passes. Alderman Rashad, sorry.
Madam Chair, I move to amend by substitution.
Do I have a second? The item is moved in second. Discussion. Alderman Rashad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would call my colleagues' attention to the packet. If you flip to page 58, it's one page after 57, which sounds like a silly thing to say, but page 57 has a 57 at the bottom of it. The next page has no number, but it's pretty easy to figure out which is 58. And here you will find, it's a red line version printed in black and white, but you can tell what has been revised. And if colleagues would just look through those revisions, they really get towards the proper form of an order with some cleaning up of language. But I didn't see anything in it that changes the substance of what's being requested here by the applicant. And so I think the edits are appropriate. And so I think I would recommend that colleagues support the motion to amend by substitution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further comments from colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is amended. So we're back to the item is amended. Discussion. Alderman Morrison.
I am in support of this item as the place in itself really is next, and that is somewhere when you do think about young adults, right, and they need residential, places to stay, things of that sort. It's right off the highway, and it's very convenient. So I do think that this technical change is important. However, as I will always say, any developer that's doing any type of anything, you always have to think about the people that don't have a lot of money. And housing is one of the biggest social issues in the country. And that's one of the reasons, as a social worker, I'm constantly pushing on these things. So I just feel like if the developers can, look at how they can dig deeper in regards to affordability and diversifying that to allow for more people to have that access. This would really be a helpful project, not just in that particular ward, but in the city at large.
Any further? I recognize my co-chair, Alderman from.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I vote, I stand in favor, I stand in favor of this project. I'm excited to see what the outcome is going to be. 112 more apartments coming online is a big thing. And I agree with Alderman Morrison, push. But I think at some point we're going to have to revisit strategy. It's difficult for us to set a standard and then say, go beyond the standard that we set. And so I think it's a good start. We appreciate what the developers is going to do, willingness to come to the table and have a discussion of the needs of our community. And like I said, I'm looking forward to see what the outcome is going to be of this discussion as we're looking for affordability, looking for sustainability, and looking for a place that is going to be kept nice. It's one thing to have housing, another thing to have good housing. So we're looking forward to that. So I say kudos to the developers, and I know that the older that ward is going to keep her eagle eye on things to make sure that everything goes well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in, Alderman Rashawn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say to colleagues that, as you can see in the packet, the City Planning Commission voted unanimously to give a favorable recommendation. And I can speak on behalf of my colleagues on the commission that folks were enthusiastic about the change in use from a long-term hotel to a residential use. We need more units. That's just true, without a doubt. This will continue even with the moratorium in place because it's one of the categorical exclusions. And so this item we can vote on and the site plan can move forward even though there's a broader moratorium in place. And I appreciate the applicant maybe taking time to show how what is there and what is planned to be there does not conflict with the broader vision and goals set forth in the Longworth Responsible Growth Plan. Now, of course, the Responsible Growth Plan is just the plan, and what ultimately gets built may end up looking different than what's envisioned, but we certainly wouldn't want a project that is totally compatible with what is envisioned, and that Responsible Growth Plan is worth noting was the product of a huge amount of work by elected officials, city staff, and a lot of contribution from residents. And so it's part of the reason why this is part of the categorical exclusions from the moratorium, because it is harmonious with the vision set forth in the Responsible Growth Plan. So I'm encouraging colleagues to vote in favor of this item. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If there's no further discussion, take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item passes. Alderman Rashawn. Alderman Rashawn.
With great gusto, I move we adjourn.
The item is moved in second, certainly discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.